Hey nerds, welcome back. I am Lee, and I have been getting one question non-stop tonight. And that question is, has anyone found any good rune pages for Illaoi yet? The answer is, we have a few options, but there isn't a perfect answer, and there probably will not be a perfect answer. Um, I have a few options. If you check the description in the stream, I gave a link to a spreadsheet that I made back when I was testing on the PBE, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a TLDR before we get to there. These are the runes that are currently live. I would suggest, if you are new to Illaoi, go to a page that is Resolve Domination. Let's move this just a little bit. Grasping the Undying is relatively easy to work with. It gives damage and sustain. Demolish gives you a bunch of damage on turrets, which you're good at split pushing. Here, be a little bit flexible. Take Iron Skin if you're versus a hard AD matchup, like Riven or Yasuo. Take Mirror Shell if you're against an AP threat, like a Malphite, a Rumble, something like that. Take Conditioning if you know it's an easy lane and you can get to that greedy stat without having to, die too much or die at all. Take Second Wind if you are going to be getting harassed and trading with. Take Overgrowth if you are probably getting a free lane, but Second Wind is usually better. Go Domination secondary with Second Impact because you get free lethality after using a dash. That's when you dash on the W. And take Ravenous Hunter because your abilities start to heal you whenever you do damage. Another option is to do Domination, and that's with Dark Harvest. You do no longer get a soul whenever you kill somebody's spirit, so you are strictly getting spirits, or getting souls from cannon minions and any jungle CS that you steal, or where you see your jungler is killing and so you go back to the buff. This is a very greedy build, but this build adds damage. So when you auto-attack somebody, you get a burst of damage after collecting their soul. Again, Sudden Impact for damage, Eyeball Collection, stack up damage, and Ravenous Hunter. And then your secondary is flexible, but I would recommend the Ultimate Hat to reduce your ultimate cooldown, and Celerity for 4% extra movement speed, or Scorch for damage. Gathering Storm looks good, but it doesn't actually do very much in terms of attack damage until after 30 minutes, and Scorch usually does a lot more damage over the course of the game. The last thing that I'm going to recommend in the TLDR is our Sorcery page with Resolve, and that's going to be Phase Rush, which is kind of a Storm Raiders substitute, Ultimate Hat, Celerity, and Scorch, and then do something in the Resolve tree or the Domination tree. I would suggest just to start out with. So that's your quick and dirty. That's your quick and dirty pass. Phase Rush, Dark Harvest, Grasp. Any of those three are going to be okay. So into the nitty gritty. I went through and I used every single rune on Illaoi. Every single rune. I'm going to go through them, and bear with me. It's a lot of runes, and I'm going to say why exactly they work or don't. Press the Attack is rather hard to trigger because it requires 3 auto attacks on one target to get a burst of damage, which is okay, but not great. Its auto W auto will trigger the extra damage. It is a significant amount of damage, but it's hard to get that third auto attack, and it's really hard to do it in a big fight. I should have pulled this up before. I had a highlight video from a little back. So I was running press the attack on Illaoi. And in this fight, I definitely tried to do the auto W reset, but I don't think I actually ever triggered the keystone.
How did
So
that hit me?
Q, kitties, behave, please. It's got a little bit of a different icon from the PvE, but pull out his soul, ult flash, auto on Jinx, auto on Nautilus, auto on Azir. Azir ults me back forward. That's 2 autos. Okay. I never actually got a 3rd auto on Jinx, and I did a 1v3. So in that fight, you're probably not going to get a whole lot of use of press the attack, and that's why I'm not recommending it as a keystone. Lethal tempo, again, hard to trigger, helps you take down a spirit nice and fast, doesn't do a whole lot out of that. Fleet footwork has good utility, some movement speed, a little bit of damage, not much, but I'm recommending this as a Storm Raider's replacement for lane sustain, where you don't have to hit the enemy target. If you don't like Grasp, you can heal up on the minions, and you have a little bit of extra burst of move speed and kiting that's easier to trigger than Storm Raiders. Overheal is non-functional, completely non-functional without Death Stance, because you heal for a portion of your missing health, so you're never going to go above 100% if you only heal based off missing HP. You need either Spirit Visage, Death Stance, some kind of lifesteal, Fleet Footwork in order to get over that overshield. So I would not recommend it. Triumph is useful as a new dangerous game. Gives you extra gold and health returned on a takedown. Presence of Mind is what I'm going to recommend for this key. So Presence of Mind, let me pull this up. So for 5 seconds after you level up, and also a takedown, so on a player, or a spirit, whenever you kill the spirit from the test of spirit, your mana is fully refunded for 5 seconds. So keep in mind that early game, you're going to be using your autos, your W, and your Q in order to kill the spirit. And any mana after that is most likely going to be used on your W in order to push the lane or catch up to your opponent. Mid and late game, this really starts to shine when you land a Test of Spirit on somebody, and then can follow that up with just an auto Q, kill the spirit, and then you're able to do like an ult or a Q and more Ws after that. And after you start getting takedowns, that adds up. So that's why I'm recommending Presence of Mind over Triumph, which is strictly just healing and gold, and Overshield, which doesn't actually function until you get some kind of lifesteal like Death Stance. So the legend abilities are Alacrity, Tenacity, and Bloodline for lifesteal. Tenacity is really the best one. You can use lifesteal. It's okay. I would recommend Tenacity over anything else. And then out of these abilities, each one does more damage. Coup de Grace kills champions that are low. Takedowns on champions grant additional AD. Cut Down is for killing tanks. So you see that the enemy team has a top lane Maokai, a Jarvan jungle, and a Galio mid with a Braum support or something. I'm just making shit up at this point. Point is, you're going a full damage Illaoi, and the enemy team is going to be really tanky. So you want to cut down the higher health tanks. I would recommend Last Stand, which deals increased damage while you're below 60% health. Because a lot of times you're going to get chunked out, and then you're going to need to lifesteal up, and you gain a whole bunch of damage when you are low. And this is almost easier to use than Coup de Grace or Cut Down. 10% more damage to champions less than 40% health, or 4% more damage to champions with 150 more max health than you, increased up to 10% to 2,000 more max health, which is hard to get. But this is easy, because you're going to be below 60% health when you're trying to 1v3. So if we move on to Domination, this is a good page that I recommend. Electrocute is basically the new Thunderlords. It's a little hard to use, and the cooldown is very long, but the damage is huge. The only problem is you can spend your Thunderlords trigger on the spirit, and it gets reduced onto the player, and that kind of sucks. It's kind of a feels bad moment. I would not recommend Predator. I had a hard time getting it to do anything. It adds an active onto your boots. It helps you get in the fight. It's like a small righteous glory. Dark Harvest is kind of a gamble. It works on your auto attacks. You need to collect souls, you need to get snowballing, and you need to steal jungle camps. And if you can get to 150 stacks, it's really, really freaking strong. But until then, it's not so good. You kill the cannon minion in lane, and then you W on your opponent for a little bit of damage. Theoretically, it's more damage than Grasp, but in most circumstances, Grasp was getting more damage throughout the entirety of the game than Harvest is able to do, like, without being completely snowballed. Cheap Shot is good situationally, dealing damage to champions with impaired movement. I'll get to this later. Taste of Blood is okay, heal when you damage an enemy champion, but Sudden Impact will almost do more damage than any of your keystones. That's why this is really important. Eyeball Collection is for damage. If you want more vision and warding, you can go Ghost Portal or Zombie Ward. I prefer Zombie Ward because I already ward a lot. Out of the ones at the bottom here, the Hunters, Ravenous Hunter is definitely the best, and it very much outshines Taste of Blood. So if you're going for a primary domination, this is what I would suggest. Moving on to Sorcery. We have a little bit of a toss-up. Theoretically, this is a good tree for us because everything affects abilities and all the secondaries are really strong. The only problem is Phase Rush is bugged where your E does not count. So in order to trigger Phase Rush instead of Storm Raiders, you have to do an auto WQ combo on the enemy or an E auto QW combo in order to get that movement speed boost. The slow resistance is still extremely strong, especially if you're facing a Nasus matchup or trying to escape from a gank, but it is a little different, and I promise you guys, you just need a little bit of time to adjust to how they proc. It's still an okay mastery. Ultimate Hat is very, very strong. Mana Flow Band is not as good as Presence of Mind. Nullifying Orb is very strong against AP threats like Rumble, or Swain, or Singed, that you're having a rough time. Like, Singed doesn't care about your ultimate, he cares about killing you, and he's just going to run away no matter what, so Nullifying Orb is really strong in certain instances. So this is one of those situational ones. I found Absolute Focus is while you're above health, so it's nice, but you're low health a lot. Transcendence and Celerity are kind of a toss-up. This one gives you extra CDR, which is really nice, and then converts bonus CDR into attack damage. That sounds nice in theory, but it's only going to give you between 5 and 15 AD. It's not going to give you very much. Celerity gives you 4% increased movement speed. If you guys remember, Quintessences gave 1.5% increased movement speed per quint. So 2 of them would give you 3% movement speed. This gives you 4% movement speed and adds to your attack damage when you build things like Trinity Force, Dead Man's Plate, Boots, Boots 2, that kind of stuff. Holy crap. This is really strong. Yeah. Scorch adds damage with a 20-second cooldown. This does more damage than Keystone runes. This is really strong. Gathering Storm is only strong after 30 minutes. You should end the game before 30 minutes. Scorch will add more damage over the entire course of the game through laning phase than anything else. That's Sorcery. Let's go to Resolve. And we see some familiar names in Resolve. So Grasp of the Undying, obviously, is what I'm going to recommend in this tree. Aftershock and Guardian are not going to be functional for you. Unflinching is alright. You gain tenacity and slow resistance, plus gaining it when you use the summoner spell, which is alright for making flash plays, but otherwise I didn't find a whole lot useful, especially when I'm just using teleport, and Illaoi's teleport ganks are not that good. Demolish is really strong. You annihilate turrets. You can't really use Font of Life, except with certain niche builds. Yeah, Demolish is really strong. Iron Skin and Mirror Shell are pretty similar. These are for your early lane. I'm facing Riven, I'm facing Rumble. I'm not in any threat of dying whatsoever, so I'm going to be greedy. Take one of these depending on your matchup. Overgrowth, in theory, sounds good, but you're only getting anywhere between 50 and 150 health out of this, depending on your build. That's very strong for a mastery, but in terms of stats, Second Wind will give you more healing. I know you look at Revitalize and you think your heals are 5% stronger, but when you're healing for 5% of your missing health, and you're making that 5% stronger, we're only talking single-digit health increases. If you look at the numbers, your Second Wind is going to heal for 4% of your missing health, versus, like, yeah, just check the numbers. Trust me on this, Second Wind is stronger. Our last tree we need to look at is Inspiration. Dreamland's gotten a lot of success using Glacial Augment. These are going to be very personal. If you are a player that likes to build Iceborne Gauntlet, you will probably enjoy Glacial Augment. My problem is that it doesn't help you get on top of the enemy in the first place, which is why I really like the Celerity rune. But Glacial Augment will slow on your autos. The slow is for 2 seconds, and it has a 7 to 4 second cooldown. So it's not permanent. But the other ones, like Unsealed Spellbook and Kleptomancy, can work. They're just unreliable, and I'm not really sure how to quantify them yet, so I can't recommend them yet. The consistency of Glacial, if you're going Inspiration, is what I would suggest. Out of your secondary runes, Biscuit Delivery is really good, and it's good for lane sustain. Perfect Timing is good if you're planning to buy a Guardian Angel or a Stone Plate. Magical Footwear is nice. I like the movement speed differential it gives you, but it's not a ton of movement speed. Futures Market is really strong, or it could be not very useful. It's going to depend on your games. The instance that I gave in my little document was, it's variable in utility damage and snowball potential. It has the potential to be very powerful. If you have a good lane but you got ganked and you have a bad back timer, even if you didn't die, you may still not be able to get the next minion wave because it's unsafe. So you're able to purchase your double longsword, your pickaxe, whatever. the rune gave you like 300 gold for the back timing, and then you come back to lane and immediately kill your lane opponent because you have that item spike. In games where I use this rune every time I back, even for just something as simple as a pink ward, I get ahead and I get the item spikes. In games I've had where I have enough to do whatever I want because I'm already fed, it doesn't matter because I'm already fed, and it doesn't help me nearly as much. It might be confirmation bias where I'm winning and so I win harder. And if I'm behind, it's not doing a whole lot. It's really hard to quantify how good this is. Going back, Cosmic Insight is very strong for 5% CDR and max CDR. Approach Velocity is only good with Glacial Augment or a team that has a lot of setup for you. So this is 10% movement speed towards enemy champions that are movement impaired. This has a 1000 range. That is a little bit longer than your tentacle. If you land a Test of Spirit on somebody and they run out of range, you cannot use this to catch up to them because they will be out of range. If you get on top of them with Glacial Augment and you slow them, it's going to work fairly well. Alright, so that's going over what the runes are. That's a lot of information I'm throwing at you guys. Let's dip into some of the secondaries and some of the pages. So, if you are going Domination and you know that it's against a Riven top, and you know that she's going to snowball or you're going to snowball, and you are going to win this matchup, god damn it. Something like Dark Harvest, I'm going to snowball. Sudden Impact for lethality, Eyeball Collection and Ravenous Hunter for healing and sustain. And then you're going to have Ultimate Hat for ultimates because her cooldown is much lower than yours, and you have Celerity to catch up to her. That's a good page. You can do something instead, a secondary, like Resolve. So, I'm going to take Iron Skin because she deals exclusively physical damage, and Demolish so that after I kill her, I can take her turret very quickly. Also good. Or, Riven is a manaless champion. I want mana sustain. Presence of Mind, after I kill her spirit, will help refund some of the mana. And then I'm going to take Tenacity because we might be ending up team fighting at some point. Or, I'm going to take Last Stand to do more damage to Riven when she chunks me out with her burst damage. That's also very good. Precision, Sorcery, Resolve, Inspiration. Riven matchup is very based on item spikes and who gets to snowball when. It's also very cooldown dependent. So I'm going to get Futures Market and Cosmic Insight for CDR and item spikes. This also works. There is no perfect thing. It's what do I want to do? How is the matchup going to go? And that's going to dictate a little bit of your secondaries. Let's look at another example that's a little bit more thought through. This is Inspiration and Sorcery. So I'm going to run Glacial Augment for slowing champions, Biscuit Delivery, Futures Market, and Approach Velocity. So I have bonus movement speed toward enemy champions that are movement impaired. And then I'm going to run Celerity for even more movement speed. Like, this is an I'm going to stick on you forever page. If you think about Inspiration Domination, we can run Cheap Shot. Damaging champions with impaired movement deals bonus true damage. And then Ravenous Hunter. I wouldn't recommend Cheap Shot because you can't impair the enemy unless you run Glacial Augment. Do you guys see how that makes sense? There are some things, some interactions with this that we're not going to find. There are some interactions with this that nobody's really going to know how it works until we get to play with it. As long as you're thinking about it and making intelligent choices, a lot of these are going to work. There might not be the perfect Illaoi rune page. There could be a whole bunch of them. I just came up with 20 rune pages for Illaoi using each tree. Be creative, guys. Go nuts. Post your stuff on r/Illaoi, the Illaoi mains Reddit. Hit up the Discord, the Illaoi mains Discord. I'm going to go post the links. You can find the item spreadsheet in the description on the video. Good luck. Have fun. Hug lots of tentacles.